Hello, everybody. And if you want some fun, because I've heard Doctor Who Comic Con panel didn't give people a lot of that, so welcome to our Line of Duty stream. And of course, Daniel needs this because he's a bit sad from his football, aren't you, mate?
Yeah, well, that's some positives to take can but I can get around to you yesterday for the first time in 16 months. So that's a bonus. I saw the guy that I usually sit next to, even though we are sitting, and we were sitting in different bits. We both at half time and stuff like that. And for any other fans out there, just to to summarise the changes. You won't be sitting in your usual seats like a afterwards of in regard to what needs support just until it gets back to some sort of normality. And yeah, which is what I'm going to have to go on to do until this.
Yeah. So do you want me to start with what my general thoughts are for the episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do that then.
Yeah, no, I agree with Daniel. I think this is one of the best episodes I think they've done from the whole of the first series and the second one. Everything's now clicking. All the little bits that felt that they were a bit separate and that they weren't connected to the main plot, everything's now starting to slowly link. All the characters that might, like I said, might have felt a bit like they weren't part of the web are all starting to come in now. And I just think, and I think a lot of that is also Denton in this episode. She gets put through the ringer really badly, but also you have some interesting things with Kate and Steve, and I think Hastings as well. You see sort of their characters now have a bit of having to trust each other and having to really have each other's backs, and it's nice to see then this team, which is for me who came into it later. It was already established as this sort of trifecta that they were that close. And this episode, I think you're starting to get hints of how much these three sort of care about each other with the Kate storyline and how Steve and even Hastings have a bit of an argument. So there's a heck of a lot going on. I think that's the best way to describe this episode. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of character development. Um, there's a lot of character development that picks up in the next, and it picks up from the last episode. Could you find out, you find out that the EI is I'm as Orton, so
Yeah,
I
but we're jumping a bit.
yeah, I mean we'll get in the but like is with it kind of picked up from what last week ago. Obviously, it's healing, um and she's supposed to deny the ill, which
Yeah,
didn't come it didn't come as too much of a surprise. I have to actually say to start off with, because the way that the narrative is managing to construct itself, it makes sense why she was denied and ill. But again, I think it's kind of his confidence. I didn't need to ask specific delays of witness protection and human operations and like for office, and it says that the kill and comment and then she's new Yarte Nelson because they
Because he'd been the
basically
last one.
basically they found the old keyboard type and so
Yeah, and it's good because
yeah,
it shows the increased pressure, doesn't it,
yeah,
of the press, of this sort of dogged thing of, because they're not getting, well, the press is seeing that the obviously viewing the police as not doing their job right, they're not getting results.
yeah,
It's like trying to get more results. So he does, in this press conference, he does say there's been a development and there has been an arrest, but he doesn't say who. And then as soon as he starts to like give them that bit of like information, so it's like trying to give them a bit of like food to shut them up almost, that's not enough for the press. So then they bring up the speeding ticket, don't they? And that's been like a running theme with his character, that he's constantly trying to get this story like quashed. He's really trying to get this story out of the papers, and it's just not going away for him.
yeah.
So that's another good thing, and I think that's what Line of Duty does do very well. It's like building tension in a storyline, that things don't just get left in a spot and then not touched upon again. So like we had with series one with Steve's trial and other things, it's that same tactic of things just keep being a theme and keep coming up, and it's really pestering him, this speeding ticket.
Yes, and as for the kid as for the kid is very watching about white kill or for it to see that then gets introduced to the gets into just the and gets introduced to the female as in Arsenal Radio even as in like basically where she's been asked a series of questions and she can only respond and she can only respond to some answers and you can tell the question before she steps into the field. She gives a good phone and she says yes, and that tells you at that point she felt as though she was unwhistle.
Well, if you think
point,
about it, she's
yeah,
a police person in prison,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they purposely do say that she's in the unit by herself, like she's not with other prisoners, is she? Which you at
yeah,
first you think, oh, that's good. You think,
yeah,
oh, they're protecting her.
and yeah,
No, later on you realise
and yeah, it's specifically called the
vulnerable
vulnerable
person unit. I
unit.
should be laughing because what happens to her is horrible later on, but it's like that false sense of security, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah,
Oh, and the gruesome twosome, as I refer to those two. I've got a feeling when
yeah,
they were doing the casting call, they just said, "Can we have actresses that just look utterly miserable?"
yeah, and I mean, yeah, and to be honest, they do have faces like with scaled off. He
Yeah.
should have, should have got that, and should have get that okay, basically, and that's not enough of that. It's
No,
I'm sure
they
they'll,
play
yeah,
the couple you had in series one, the blonde haired. It's that sort of similar vibe, isn't it?
oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
you
like
get
hate the job.
she was such a delight. character and so on. These two Amaria Sunshine and Rain. It's basically
They make Daniel look cheerful, folks. They make Daniel look cheerful.
Mother said not, but moving on. Yeah, so so when we got back to the station and like it's Eve actually we find out that they're going to be working with Orton and they're both awful for just like
Yeah, especially Steve. Steve is so happy to be working with Dot again.
Yeah. And so he's and tries to reassure that he was the only one that gave evidence about Yates and now asked Ace for the series on. And then he's like he should give him a chat. And
Steve just has a look on his face like I want to punch this guy. I don't want to work with him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's like instantly suspicious of Dot. Oh, he's not happy. He's
yeah.
I don't know which word's better, but that's the one I wrote down when I was doing my notes.
And Matthew says, "Don't get over the cat."
She got off lightly in comparison to her owner.
Well, that's the oil. Also,
I didn't say what. And we're gonna get to it.
Yeah, but we're gonna get to it. So, where the hell are we, man?
Well, no. So you have the introduction of Dot again, that he's landed on his feet from series 1. I think that's also important.
Yeah.
He's got the promotion.
Yeah, because there's an investigation and it's revealed to the and it's revealed to the odd into the protective work.
Yeah, that's the next big moment because he's basically Dot's giving a briefing because he's part of another AC9, I think it was, unit, and he has links of witness protection that he's giving like a presentation, and that's when you get the big reveal from the last episode that they didn't tell you yet, and that's who the witness was.
Yeah. And it's obviously it's obviously from series on who's the protected witness, and you basically we find out that he was given the identity at its camp because he was given a immunity from prosecution, and basically the fellow he was located to because of safe house and he also is his protection officer is what his protection officer.
Yeah, she was like his handler, wasn't she? The vibe I got. And he was basically going to give, by the sounds of it, pretty important information on criminal gangs and the OCG from last series. So he was basically going to squeak, is what they sort of hint at, don't they? So that's why he was under so much protection.
Yeah, I know, right. And can why the ambush happened to be basically he found out that he was going to get evidence, so that is a way to sort of the film want to shut him up once and for all. But
Yeah,
basically,
and we were saying,
yeah,
yes, we were saying last stream there were hints of it being very organised, wasn't there? This wasn't just like
yeah,
a one-off hit. It had the fingerprints of, there was intelligence, it was really much an organised hit. So it makes sense now that it was Tommy.
yeah.
And like I said, it's a nice think that it's a nice carryover that you, because I know some people were saying, oh, with the sort of cliffhanger of the, not cliffhanger, like the twist ending of series 1, and it was like, oh, that was a bit odd, but you can see now like it's carrying over the fact that Tommy was the witness, the fact that Dot is back on the scene. It's like those threads are not being ignored.
Yeah.
From that sort of bit of an odd, shocking ending of the first series.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, but just putting on screen, but I'm not confused of any of souls invading a chat, but like, we've been okay so far. So, so here are we.
So
Um,
now Kate does her first visit to Denton. Oh, no, no,
yeah,
no. No, actually, let me think. I'm looking at my notes because I'm organised. Oh, has she been given the dodgy food yet? Because I haven't written that down. I think that's the
that's
first.
yeah, that's in the next scene, is it not?
Yeah,
Because
it's
she's
her in prison getting given some lunch.
because she's present. Well, I would say it's more another
Yeah,
insecure.
it's like on a tray. It looks like something like school dinners almost, doesn't it?
Yeah. So like basically we should get having that food and you can kind of basically us so up. But like then she starts to I sit in here for like, oh my god, I think
Well,
I know
yeah,
what's
but she
come.
doesn't sniff it at first. She sort of takes a
Yeah,
drink, and
yeah,
then it's because it's porridge. It looks like porridge, doesn't it? And she
yeah,
sort of like gets the spoon she's got and sort of twirls it around a bit, and it's sort of like good gunk. It's
yeah,
after once she's eaten it, she sniffs it.
yeah,
Because I'm pretty sure if she sniffed it, she wouldn't have eaten it.
yeah. And yeah, and so productive. Probably incidents to the user often then she says to the aunts, like they put shit and they put shit in the food and answering answering yes or no. Won't you people won't you people check the
Yeah, and it's the start of the thread, isn't it? Of even in
yeah,
prison, there's some sort of dodgy, isn't there? The
yeah,
link from the outside getting to her. It's like this should be where she's protected, but she's blatantly not, and this is the first sign of that.
yeah.
Yeah, Matthew, that's an interesting question, actually. Unless you just
And
meant it as like a basic term of what on earth did you put in my food?
how does she know what shit tastes like? Yeah, good point. But yeah, but after you, but after you, after you see us, but you can kind of tell by our the action or it could be, you know,
Well,
the
being
case
violently
what,
sick is also
yeah, and
it's a
yeah,
massive sign.
and okay, I else picture this. Do you know? It's that almost instant.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So now you start to have Kate visit her. once that first incident has happened.
Yeah. So so Kate should up Kate tells us already are are compelled to get a very didn't even know your work up or basically and just shows up the extra army and then she asks have you seen this man before and then she says oh, and like um like this is that she's um she's acting like what what the what asked so what she says I'm in the conversation.
Yeah, well, and then Denton basically starts to. No, sorry. Then Kate asks, "Why didn't you show them my phone log? Like, why did you basically halfway tell them what I was up to?" And then now we're starting to see Denton's little escape or trying to get out plan. And there was a reason she didn't show Kate's phone logs.
Yeah, yeah, because there's a reason, because like he wants to use the phone as a bargaining chip in order to
Yeah, Kate's her
another
leverage.
and yeah um another to another to use that so she gets the least of it until and then and she has a couple of eggs on these things, but I found to work for which I found to work funny the way she said it. Though it just made me it just made me laugh out loud on oh because she says she says Hastings is Gabby is extra Alvin and Hamlet can't keep it in his hand. Basically that's our
Yeah,
thing.
but also Kate
Yeah.
sort of saying, in comparison to the case, mine was the worst. Why didn't you say anything?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think Kate is very much like she's really trying to work it out at this point and trying to like get her game plan almost. And Denton even now she doesn't fully say. She just says, "You're my ticket out of here."
And yeah, and she's good at pulling in, and she's good at pulling in, and also a chess.
Yes,
Games now I've noticed.
that's what Denton's all about. It's all mental games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think also you can start to see how her move when she basically did that freeway. Look, you're all doing something dodgy thing. It was why this is also another reason why it's staffed. That sort of you can see why she did it, but it's hurting her because you can really see with Kate now she wants Denton down. I think even if there wasn't a lot of evidence, she would still want Denton to go down at this point, and you're starting to see that in Kate. A bit of like she did with Gates, to be fair. It's like she's getting a bit too personally involved now.
Yeah, but also I do kind of see where it's coming from because she says later on in the episode, who are you to basically talk to them? Mm, Well, because I think as well, I think I think it will be a special needs to go through the series and she's got this sort of whole whole young sort of she sort of attitude about us, so I do kind of see where it's coming from in a sense because she's no she's no um sh, sh, it doesn't what any friends uh, okay she
Yeah, but
does
it's like they've all
on
got something.
character yeah
Yeah, like it's like they've all got something, haven't they? That like, but like I said, when the show started to get big in the UK and they actually did that, you'd get like police on interview, like obviously retired police people, but and
mm-hmm,
people would say like, how close is it to actually anti-corruption? Like, is it just a load of fantasy? And a few of them have said, actually, what it gets right is some of the best people in that type of job in real life. They're not angels. They're not
yeah
these moral holier than thou types. They can't be. But
yeah
you can see Denton's point. Like they can't cast judgments like you're saying.
yeah
And I think
yeah
especially with Kate, I do think the whole cheating angle really does weaken her in that regard. In the sense of she really can't question Denton.
yeah yeah
Yeah, we'll get to
so
that.
yeah, we'll get to that. So without it on, okay, so I can't put up a boat to jump on it. And again, so
Well,
without
now we
it
have them going back to the garage. Kate and Steve are going
oh
back
yeah,
to
yeah,
that
yeah.
garage.
Oh yeah, so they go back to the garage, but they find out that but they find out that it's no longer foul. Ah, the on traditional foul. So it suggests to the um, it suggests to the audience something could be written. Yeah, so we'll get back to that though, but we're like the on carrying meats a bit uneven.
Well, Kate gets a lipstick, doesn't she? Like a
And
little
yeah,
lipstick rolls.
yeah,
And the thing is, that place has already been checked out. So, in the space of the police already doing their search,
yeah,
and now it being, and then Kate and Steve basically giving it a second look, something has
yeah,
happened in that time, that space gap is what you get.
yeah. Um, yeah. So did that, so then so then we go back to the station, and then we see and then we see oh yeah man no sorry I've jumped ahead again and so like we won't see his husband because they both
Oh no no no
he
no! You're jumping. Yeah, you're jumping.
uh,
I've
uh,
well, first we see the next thing I think is noticeable is we actually see Ted's place.
yeah
We actually see where Ted is
yeah
living.
yeah and it's essentially in Yom Hospital
Yeah, it's
is
quite a sad existence to look at, isn't it? It's like a one
yeah
bedroom with like noisy neighbours either side, and this is part of the little sort of bread trail they are doing about Ted's home life.
yeah
And there's been hints like we know about his money issues because of Denton's financial search, And I think this
Yeah.
is just a nice little scene to properly put that into perspective, how bad his money issues must be.
And again, Jedi then sort of asks him about that, um, um, and he no, he are on in this episode as well,
Well, the
and
next scene is linked to
yeah,
that because he goes to Dryden, doesn't he, Ted?
yeah,
To basically tell him with the Denton things, you're going to hear some accusations against me and my officers. So he's almost setting up a defence, isn't he, with the superintendent, with Dryden?
yeah, but sort of all that as well. Jedi things like what I wasn't
Yes,
notified
that's the
about
beginning of the
his
conversation, yeah.
arrest. Yeah, uh, um, and I can also again I was just following the line and orders. Yes, awesome.
Yeah, but you're also starting to see
Awesome.
something with Ted, which is he doesn't
Yeah,
like to tell his superiors what he's doing.
yeah,
He's sort of just, and I think honestly that's why he likes Steve, because they both share that trait of sometimes they will just go blazing ahead without really telling
yeah.
people or notifying people. But in his position, he needs to tell his superiors. But he doesn't. He just arrests his Denton. Oh yeah, that would have been funny.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at you. Chat now, but I feel a bit on with someone or person. I'm in the chat.
Yeah, we just had it in his pocket, just from like a conquest one night, and it's just in his pocket.
It's surprising he hasn't on anything like that yet, but a person that's the phone.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get to that one later on in the series. Don't even worry about that.
Well, no, it comes up in the episode later on. His
Um, yeah,
misdemeanors.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, it
yeah,
starts off with basically Dryden saying, "Why didn't you keep me in the loop? Why didn't you tell me you were arresting Denton?"
yeah,
And then Ted, near the end, says basically slips in, "You're going to hear some accusations against me,"
yeah,
and he talks about his money issues there.
yeah. And he basically he opens up to July so right, so we find out that he bought put a or put me in the Irish a pub after the time so he worked basically with was his money as
Yeah, I think it was a colleague or an ex-colleague. I can't remember if it was while it somebody who was working still.
I
Conned
yeah
him by the sounds of it into a bad deal, really.
yeah
But I think he must have had probably issues with gambling would be my guess, or just general money issues before that. For
yeah
him to be willing to risk it sounds like it was pretty much his savings or a big chunk of his money that he put into this development with the
yeah
way his wife's been acting.
yeah yeah and yeah you kind of tell what the size of boots are on it so Dryden says that it's the honest from are coming for all what I respect and get it take like unfortunately for his means I think he knows he can eat um eat shit and he should kill me because by July danger reaction. You can kind of sense that he'll be in deep sort of shot.
Yeah, well, because
Because
of
of
his
it.
position, basically. I think if he was
Yeah,
any other copper in any other position, it wouldn't
yeah,
be good, but it wouldn't be such a dangerous thing. But he's anti-corruption,
yeah,
so it's a massive possible weakness just to do with his job. And I think he knows that, and that's why he didn't say it in the first place. And now he's scrambling almost, isn't he?
yeah,
See, and now you see Kate go to Jane's husband.
yeah. Yeah, and and she can and she basically some um the basic character that show the term of our partners Eve to question to question him about um to question him about the answers of the whole and the holes and the whole sort of answer and then a bit about the and a bit about the phone call that we had one yes,
Yeah, it's sort of just showing how Kate is being still not telling her team everything at this point, and you just think. I remember thinking this watching it the first time when I watched it, just thinking like, why are you carrying on trying to cover this up? Like
yeah,
it's not going to get any better. You're just sort of biding your time almost was the feeling I got.
yeah,
So then
but
the next scene, yeah,
and a bit like she gets him, or she sort of he's and she sort of he's behind and then so he's before them on as it to kill. Sting and
yeah.
then
You just think
oh,
like you just sort of question like, is it worth it? Why are you carrying on? Don't you? Like
yeah,
this could really damage your career if it gets out. So wouldn't it be just better to cut your losses? Is the vibe I get at this point in the episode.
yeah,
Because I think it doesn't. I think maybe if, and this is a bit of a tiny nitpick, and I will use that term. Maybe if there was like hints in the first series, but I don't think they could have done it because they were introducing all the characters. But if there's a bit of it, like a hint towards her having the affair, then maybe you'd understand why she's so desperate to cover it up.
I think we could have thought on the bill extend it the and now yeah the first episode by yeah a couple of and it's to sort of maybe start the whole sort of explanation about the it just to sort of just to sort of start it, because like
Yeah,
they
they wouldn't have enough
don't
time
really,
to do anything else.
yeah, yeah,
But that's a nitpick. But it's just sort of like a. It could have. Yeah. So
yeah,
next, obviously, Steve arrives with Kate, thinking, "Oh, I'm just interviewing the husband,"
yeah,
and they
uh,
and Steve does lead it.
yeah. I, I mean, because that's his sort of special, and it's not all at all, but it hasn't. Yeah,
She's sort of quietly sat next to him,
yeah, mhm,
and like Steve, and like when because they do the interview, don't they? And like he gives very boilerplate sort of, oh, I think this, and doesn't really say anything. And then the moment when they're going to go, and Steve actually just questions him again, and you can tell Steve is himself thinking a bit, something's not quite right here. And her face when Steve like does those extra couple questions when they're about to leave, she's like eyeballing the husband like so hard. Well, but when did Arnott have a affair? Unless you're talking, he's a flirt, and he's bad with women, but I don't think he's had an affair.
Like if you're talking about if you're talking about I think I'm talking about within offsets the witness and the
Yeah, that's not an affair. He's not with anybody.
You see, yeah, interpreted to that is Jesus and appearing
yeah. No, but here's the other thing, like Kate's married and has a kid. I'm pretty sure Steve's single.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't have an affair.
Because the essential he says it in that's the episode that is
he's just got really bad impulse control. If you're thinking about just the general topic, I'll give you that, but I don't think you can say affair for Steve. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah, and
I want to put up some. Already before we go any further. I hold on. What is it?
Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah.
I think it was more Kate's affair that didn't seem to work with her characters for me. That felt a bit forced. Yeah, I never considered this until some of you guys in the chat were bringing this up. It does sort of feel a little bit out of nowhere. Like I said, maybe they would have planned it a bit better. They would have had like a hint. That's why I was saying maybe like in the end of the first series.
Yeah.
Or maybe just really maybe really showed a bit more of how bad her marriage is. I don't know.
Yeah. Because one of the was about needing some on now. Yes, that we can kind of actually can kind of actually be about on now that we now that it's been mentioned in the chat that this whole perfect sort of family either though there was nothing in that finale to suggest that therefore was actually we can police now come to
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if you couldn't fit an affair in, maybe you could have had a few comments about like the husband getting on her nerves, or just like not because this does get explored later. I will say that, and you sort of understand. I think right now you can't understand it as well. It's not justified. It doesn't justify what she's doing, but I think in later series it's almost like maybe he saw this and tried to rectify it later, because it does go more into her marriage in later series about how being undercover affects it, basically. But that's all I'll say.
So that article says it takes 2 to tango and which says I um, I can see your point, Charlotte. So yeah,
I
so
think the problem is, like,
it's
and this is a
normal.
nice problem to have for once, there's so much
Yeah,
they try and fit in. I do
yeah,
think they naturally, that just means some things on reflection do get almost left a little bit to the side because they chuck in so much characters, plot, twists, like action bits, like there's so much.
yeah. Um. So and so and so I realize that the conversation between Arnott Arnott Orton because
Yeah, now
to he um because he wants to take a look at and he wants to take a look at the statement that Arnott's just wrote up it can kinda see that Arnott's having outs about um having outs about Acres and and statement.
yeah, and I think you almost get the feeling that now Dot is trying to almost take over. Like he's trying to
Yeah,
almost railroad a bit the investigation
yeah,
because he's looked at that statement. Uh,
yeah,
yeah, so he's basically he's looked at the evidence, hasn't he? And he's looked at the
yeah.
statement and just sort of said, "Oh, it doesn't quite fit."
Um,
Matthew, I'll
can
just
I
say
say,
that get
yeah,
later
yeah,
on, it makes sense
um,
why that's the way he's acting.
yeah, can I sort of address this? And I say, and so I would probably, I would probably respect probably the degree of your comment after. I think it's actually perfect because if you think about it though, he's kind of the mastermind, and he's kind of the mastermind of pure eater, and that's a sort of trait him and Hastings actually share because how many times have characters tried to um tried to appear in sort of old arm and into the type of person that they want him to be. And again, you kind of see that with Orton trying to get on side and to his, yeah, and a little bit.
Yeah, and all I'm also gonna say, like, I can see where you're coming from, Matthew, because he was a bit cowardly, wasn't he, in the first series? Dot they sort of made him out to be the weak link, sort of in Gates' squad. But if
Yeah,
you actually think about what he is, what it's implied with the reveal of him knowing Tommy and the whole
yeah,
caddy angle, he basically has to be a chameleon. He has to
yeah,
be able to change his personality because of what he is. He,
yeah,
like I said, he's the caddy. So
yeah, exactly.
he has to
And
be in
yeah,
the police force. He has to convince all his workers, his workmates, and everybody in the force that he's a out and out police officer. But on the
yeah,
sly, he's not.
yeah, and just be patient because all the stuff with the caddy will come later on in this series. So just kind of be
And
patient,
series
but I
three,
can kind of see, yeah, kind of be patient, but I know where you are going with it, but be respectfully disagree with your
we love
comment.
you, Matthew. Still,
Yeah. So like and it gets and gets sort of called into the head my ass office assistant.
Oh no,
Was it?
no, before that, you've got
Yeah,
Oh no, I'm skipping ahead now. Yes, it is him getting a telling off.
yeah, yeah. Um, and because Hastings says Tim, um, Hastings says Tim, what the hell you took? You know, I said, and oh,
And it is
oh,
funny because he tells him to shut the door, but he might as well have had the door wide open because when he shouts Ted, it's just like doors don't matter anymore.
but to be fair though, it's not a sign to prove with one of the way is it the walls are probably thick in as
So,
well.
so throughout the whole of this telling off, basically everybody in the office has got a front row seat and they can hear every word Hastings is saying
Yeah,
because he properly lays into Steve, basically saying you can't carry on the way you are with witnesses. You
yeah,
have a duty of care, you have a job, and sort of you see a bit of the old Steve, I would argue, from series
yeah,
one sort of appear here. That he's very sort of blood like he's fighting back. He's not taking it lying down what Hastings is saying to him in the slightest.
yeah,
And you sort of see two very different attitudes in this scene.
yeah,
Just Steve being very like I'm a bloke. I have like this is what I need. I have needs almost like it's not hurting
yeah,
anybody.
but Hastings is coming from a more sort of a
Yes,
very strict on Catholic background, so in a sense, so in this end you can see it from his and English well, so of
that's
course
why
it's on, yeah,
that's why I think it's a good scene because you can see why both blokes have that viewpoint.
yeah,
And it would be in Steve's nature to not roll over and show his belly. Basically, that's not Steve.
yeah,
But then it's not Hastings to go soft when it's something he's really not happy with.
yeah,
He says it and he's very strict with it. So it's
yeah.
a nice little scene for both of them. I think that sort of put in the episode.
So you kind of get more of them in the appellations with Orton, because he's trying to be all sort of pretty this evening. And so basically, and so basically, like, waits him for a pints and a bite to eat, and then the bite to eat to on, on trying to get months right.
And that's what we were getting at. You can see this is how
Yeah,
Cotton's got where he is. He worms himself into groups, into sort of settings, and
yeah,
identifies what gets people on side. So he's seen Steve
yeah,
get the telling off. He even purposely sort of flirts with some girls in front of Steve. So
yeah,
he's sort of playing into the stuff he knows is Steve's sort of vices almost.
yeah,
With the sort of let's go out for a Chinese and let's have some bloke talk and flirt with some girls. It's very sort of like you said, trying
yeah,
to get Steve on side.
yeah. So and it's so and it's back to the garage. So you, if I doubt that a board and if I doubt that the board that was hidden on the concrete and up and up and been got people and so like above this we still identify the odd So that gets handed over to the forensic team to analyse it, and then
Yeah, and also it's the
yeah,
fact that AC get blocked, don't they? Because our
yeah,
favourite. What unit is he actually from? Is he Major Crimes?
um,
Is that his unit?
yeah, hard to get into
Green
the
being an idiot
hard
as usual.
hard to get into the major and violent crimes in it, but he's also the chief the print and although like to be honest, his uniform's not as official as Hastings is involved. If I think about it, because Hastings has got all the and get all this but cheese and Bill comes on his uniform. This guy
He just wears a suit, doesn't
for
he?
some reason yeah, this guy has just a normal suit. That how come he's not got the unofficial type uniform? He's the chief superintendent, so you
I
would
think
expect him.
it could be because his unit is like a CID type of unit, isn't it?
Yeah,
And usually, obviously, this is off telly logic. I'm going off, but whenever I've seen CID or anything in British police shows, they tend to wear
yeah,
suits, even the higher ups. Whereas, but that could be a bit of just Ted's personality. Like because we know he can break regulations and he can be a bit like cocksure with them, but he does respect rank.
yeah.
So maybe that's a bit of Hastings' personality being shown, that he likes to show his sort of uniform because he always wears his hat, doesn't he, when he goes to see Dryden, and
Yeah.
he always has to be told, "Oh, you can put your hat off now." So I think that could be a bit of Ted's just
Yeah.
personality, why he likes to show uniform and regulations.
And yeah, no, and yeah, no, and come on, Giddy is the opposite there. On he can, I think I get that sense. Yeah, he thinks, oh, this is a she because the way that way that hard to get keeps carry himself, he carries himself with such a arrogant sort of soul. Like what about
Yeah,
no this
like he's a lot more like he's got a lot more weight than he actually does.
yeah, yeah,
Like he has his rank, but he's not respected. That's the vibe you get off him, isn't it?
yeah,
So now Kate goes to see Denton again, which is an
yeah,
interesting conversation.
yeah, yeah, and she tells about what it can do, but on is that this thing that the marriage but and asks is it are the arc from the missing persons investigation and then and he asks and he asks and, and he asks and, I is also and one could ask they can tell the cuts and that's a feeling.
Yeah, and I think this is a nice little bit of a moment for Denton, considering all
Yeah,
the sort of not very nice stuff and the sort of manipulation we've seen her do and her sort of violent streak. You see the sort of soft side to her, that her, and I believe it. I don't think she's lying when she says it was because it was recent and I wanted to get a positive like result. I wanted this job to actually not end in a
yeah,
depressing sort of ending. So you believe her, and I do in that moment because Keeley acts it brilliantly. Like you really get the sense of she just wanted a positive result. and there wasn't anything else to pick in Carly, and it's just a horrible coincidence almost
Yeah,
that
because
it
she
because
says,
of Carly's it's evolved a lot more than we know.
because she says, um, once I just wanted something to, um, something to, something to come out as good for us and geography. And in that moment, you can sort of empathize with what you said, and then he says, I know it's often here, but if we can cooperate the request with the piano keyboard, so if we keep up your cooperation, we will continue having your piano keyboard.
Yeah, and this is when Denton actually does start to open up a tiny bit
Yeah.
about the phone call.
I could she has show she has actually them but the reason why she called the hospital to go to is to find out if there were illness or the and to find out if he had actually said anything about the ambush.
Yeah, it's all about proving her innocence. That's basically what she says. Like, there's no ulterior motive. I just saw it as an opportunity to get almost to get herself out of this.
Yeah.
But she didn't realise how. Once again, and I think that's the theme almost with this conversation. It's like Denton's wrong place, wrong time, with a lot of the things she's doing. Like, you can see why she's doing them once she explains them a bit. But obviously, to somebody from the outside, or like I said, who I think has got a bit of a personal vendetta, it's so easy to see those same actions as suspicious. But a lot of it is just wrong time, wrong place with Denton.
So he said the interchange of statement, and she says and says yes, but only when you do this. So again, it's so again, it's sort of beginning aspect.
Yeah, and it's really clever writing because you, like we've just said, you just had that really heartfelt, almost. You really feel like bad again for Denton, and you really sort of are on her side. But then
unknown.
hello, no.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. How I've not seen you here in around here for a while. I know duties for a kid. It's so far, but check out the series if you haven't already, because the show that we all sort of traditionally discuss is going down the shit on the mate to be
and I saw you in North Stream in the chat, so you're just recovering from that Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So have fun with us where it's not depressing. Yeah, so now it's like I said, but that's the interesting thing of this scene. Like, you've just gone on her side again almost. You've just gone, oh, I really feel sorry for her. And then she's straight back to the manipulator again. She's straight back to the chess player again. And it's sort of, that's the thing with Denton. And I think that's why I find her to be one of the most compelling sort of bent coppers they've done. Because you go from one end of the other so much with her. From sympathy to hating, back to sympathy to hating again.
Yeah, she's definitely the most. She's definitely the more complex character as opposed to It's from series one, who was just a sort of okay sort of think she's the best man in campus and the big man in campus. So, Maureen, you think um and I think as well that she is more premeditated with the on the killing cycle or take the basic killing way and
Everything's planned
other
with her. That's the vibe
yeah
you get. Everything she does is deliberate and planned,
yeah
but it ends up blowing up in her face. Basically, that's how I would summarise Denton.
yeah
Now we have to deal
right
with Kate.
yeah so yeah so yeah he's in the bar he's in the bar talking to um um talking to Eve and she says that it's a also saying so I'm thinking a book out which um and she says that it old it old and then that's and she tells a bit about the yeah
Yeah, and I think this is a scene I really do quite love in this episode because
yeah
I think we've had a lot of Denton, we've had a lot of the other sort of characters, and it's nice to have a moment with Kate and Steve because
yeah
I feel like we had a lot of that in the first series because they were getting to know each other, and they've sort of settled a bit. But this is a really nice moment because Kate is finally opening up. She's finally
yeah
trusting Steve, and I think that's the big thing with this scene. It shows the amount of trust Kate's now got. And Steve's reaction, I think, is very telling.
yeah
That his
and
first reaction is to basically protect her.
I mean, and you basically have something wrong and instead of walk away the sensible and she's like that she's like that she basically he says without saying I can't walk away and basically about saying the most exact and was exact once and he says you see if you yourself outside the job your kid your son now right
Yeah, and I think Steve is he's sort of that sensible
yeah
answer she's been looking for. I think that's why she put a bit of why she went to him because he can be quite blunt, and I think that's what she needed him to sort of
yeah
say, "You're my mate, but you're being an idiot." Sort of the thing
yeah
that all good friendships have when you can call each other out, and this is Steve calling her out, basically saying what we've been saying that is this really worth like risking everything for? Because you
yeah
are, and you're you're really good cop. I think he doesn't exactly say that, but he's sort of saying to her, "You're too good at your job almost to risk it over this affair."
yeah
So he
and
basically
so
coaches her and tells her what to say.
yeah and yeah and basically what you got them what it is up to I basically
Yeah.
yeah,
So this
to
is the once
cover up
again
to that.
like
Yeah,
he's saying you have to lie, but he's doing it in good intentions. He's doing it, like I said,
yeah,
to protect his mate.
yeah,
And like I said, it's a really nice little scene between them because I do think the
yeah,
core of this show, I do sort of see it as a trio with Hastings, but I think that a big part of this show is Steve and Kate and sort of their
yeah,
friendship and how they become best mates.
Yeah, although well, basically, we've sort of shipped to them is either of Emma Fielder or
Oh yeah,
Homer
because
Pajama.
I know what happens in future series. That's why. At least I'm not
Oh,
one of
yeah,
these crazy people who have like one line of dialogue and then thinks they should be like together forever.
although to be fair though, you have to be crazy because you're on steroids. Even if I can pull eating a scribble, so of course, so of course I've got to be on crazy to be on stream with me. But anyway, moving on. So in Java, I didn't it's edit out of local news report and I can any basically he says Tim I've got a like a story for Orgy because they seem determined to run on him after the whole camera story that keeps coming back up to haunt Gerard basically. And so
Yeah, and now
yeah,
Dryden's becoming a bigger player in the plot.
yeah,
He's sort of showing more of his issues and the fact that
yeah,
he's willing to give away Lindsay's name, which is a massive, which it does, and it is going to have massive consequences just to get
yeah,
his face off the newspaper, just to get something that's personally negative to him away. He's
yeah,
willing to basically drop Denton and the investigation really in the gutter.
yeah.
So you're now starting to see you got vibes that he wasn't necessarily a good guy, but now you're really starting to see he's not a good guy.
And the only way, man, only gets progressive. Oh, yeah, us
Yeah, this is the tip of the iceberg.
for
That's
his
all we'll say.
character as you go through because as you find out how mum which of our past and he is the and that's for an other and bit that that's for I don't know, I don't know if we go through the rest of the SM series, but back to the S episode because there's a few more these scenes that we have to discuss. Um, so, right, so then, and so then we get to the whole, you know, I know, and then it's being up, taking and taking, and the worry sort of keep and keep and action and by the two and action by the two. I think uh,
Yeah, and it's like
yeah,
there's one other person in with her, so it looks pretty like, oh,
yeah,
she's not like surrounded by people, and it's
yeah,
very and like they even purposely show the cameras, don't they, are in this room and they're working.
yeah, yeah,
So then she starts to go on a treadmill, doesn't she?
yeah. Well, it's an exercise like this, but that way can be when she gets to a home but when she gets to a home off by with pretty budget pretty jacked up and off to off
Basically,
the
any
exercise.
female cartoon character in current comics. Let's be
Yeah,
fair.
Oh
They're very masculine-looking women. Let's be fair.
yeah,
Like one appears from nowhere, and
yeah.
they drag her off, and this scene is pretty hard to get through. It is one of those scenes that you sort of have to grit
Yeah,
your teeth almost.
because even though this on getting set out with learn more not them publication and other and even it's just means are pretty and get I think that during that can the push it's a hand and gets a hand for pushed by
Well,
the
no, here's the
heat.
thing. They don't quite crush it.
Yeah,
Basically, what they're trying to do is one's grabbed her, haven't they, and dragged her
yeah,
over to the weights, and the
mhm,
other one is trying to grab her hand and is trying to basically put it in between the weights, so when one comes down, it
yeah,
crushes her hand. And they
yeah,
and it goes on for like 3 or 4 minutes, and nobody's coming, and even they do a shot of the camera recording it. So you're just thinking as the audience, what's going on? Like, why aren't any guards coming? And then
and
the guards do eventually come, but they haven't crushed her hand yet.
yeah, but yeah, but yeah, but it's sort of just in a campaign. So the basic so the basic competitor is you also you is also you is so they so they took to the first aid um and um and 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 the each of a hand yes it can
Yeah, and they're
then
very like, oh, we'll get you a cup of tea, like very nicey.
yeah yeah and then themselves like kind of have a look at your hands and then and she says oh nails and nails and that and says that said if I got off right um right and 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 that guard says that's how good it wasn't and then another guard just comes over with the kid to hot water and then go on server
Yeah, and like
another of
it's the
the
way it's
kettle
done, isn't it? You see the steam come off the hands.
yeah
Keely is screaming, and you really buy her pain.
yeah
And it doesn't like shy away at all. The camera at this moment.
yeah
And then the one who's basically burnt her hands and grabs hold of her and threatens her. And this is when you now learn that the security are bent and they're part of some sort of criminal or some sort of not very nice group on the outside because they say, you've been speaking. If you do it anymore, the inference is it's
yeah
going to get worse.
yeah
So you sort of
so
think like, oh, like they were just getting somewhere like AC and they were just getting her inside and she was willing to speak. And now she's effectively been silenced.
yeah
So it also makes you sort of think though, like how much power had the outside, whatever this group is, like they can get Tommy killed, they can get Lindsay in prison. Like this is really starting to build up this sort of gang or like I said, the organised crime that we saw hints of last series. It's really starting
yeah
now to make them a threat, which I quite like.
yeah and it's only going to get super what on that and it or sort of series because of the way they and it because the way the writing as in series it's kind of more of a build up to and how much of a threat that Modernization is actually legal. Only beers in or the series would be my interpretation of it so far.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say out.
Yeah.
So there we have Dryden and Ted.
Yeah. So yeah. So so yeah. Jedi. Yeah. So like I can't really remember what the conversation was for that
Well,
scene that
Dryden
I'm in. Yeah.
it basically says to Ted because, well, it's interesting scene actually because the gist of it is he says to Ted, you can keep your job, like you're going to carry on being the head of AC-12,
Yeah.
and he says it's because he was honest. But
Yeah.
but then because of Dryden's actions in this episode, it does make you think: is there another motive
Yeah.
for keeping Ted, or is he actually being honest? And it is because Ted came up to him. You sort of don't know, and that's why I think it's an interesting scene. Because I think if this would have happened in another episode, you probably would have bought his word a lot more. But we've seen him do what he just did with the journalist, so we know this fella can lie.
I think Dryden basically wants to keep him on because he knows that because he knows that he's in trouble. Or then I think at this point he just I think at this point he just wants to follow on in the force with as many corrupt or
Hmm.
officers as possible with a large argument.
Yeah, like, but that's what I mean. It's an interesting scene because you do question, don't you, what
Yeah,
Dryden's doing almost.
yeah,
So now you have the final sort of interview between Kate
yeah,
and Denton, and obviously this is now after the attack.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I'm just buddy. If I forget, that you see that our hands are heavily and top and bottom. And did you so that you see and can you see some of the and also in the band Jason high it's a perfect way that you use for proper arms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and obviously also her hands. She's got them up there, hasn't she? So she basically can't use her hands.
yeah,
Like that's how bad of an attack it was.
yeah,
So it's sort of that's the beginning of Kate sort of saying, "Oh, well, we know what's
yeah.
happened,"
Mm-hmm.
and
And
then you
yeah,
sort of see a very different. Lindsay's obviously been affected because she's very different in this interview to her last one.
yeah, yeah. And then and then he says that she knows about the incident with the wood and stuff like that. And like the this is and this is he says that she thinks and she thinks it's oh yeah, but and said about the and if she had tried or asked it
Yeah,
Ivy. Listening, it says I should have built with uniform. I the listen is the
yeah, and
and
also
they're using
she says you're
the
she
kids
says
of
you're
officer.
you're a woman scorned
Yeah,
basically by telling me about your affair.
yeah,
You have weakened your position even more, almost to Kate's eyes, because she could
yeah,
literally just be making this up just to get back at Dryden. And we
yeah,
know Denton has a vindictive side to her. We've seen it. Kate has seen it.
yeah,
So the bit once again, it's like in her head, she probably thinks this is going to help me. This is going to get them to think I'm innocent. But all it does is sort of put more doubt. And also very quickly, Kate also tells her that she's managed to get her phone log as taken off evidence. So now that bit of leverage Denton did have has gone because Kate's managed to convince them not to use it.
And because she says if it was done and if all that stuff was an investigation, it could jeopardize future until overall Stacey.
Yeah, and like you can understand why Denton now feels even more like she's being set up. Like even more now, everybody's sort of closing ranks almost around her, and it's leaving her to be sort of the scapegoat. Is sort of I think Denton's thought process right now.
Yeah. So then next scene about tells Ottoman about Gerard and young
Oh no, but doesn't Dot now look into the financial history of Acres?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot that.
Because this is sort of he's been following this lead, and it's also an interesting moment because he does try to just tell Steve, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then Steve says, and I think it's a good line, no, Kate's my partner, she's gonna be in on this.
Yeah.
So once again you are seeing Dot try and separate them almost. I think he clicks that they're stronger together, those two. So he's almost trying to separate them and trying to get Steve on his side to leave Kate sort of by herself.
Yeah.
So, but Steve in the scene is once again showing that loyalty he has, and he says, "No, I'm going to get Kate." And then obviously that's what Dot wants to tell him. So Kate then knows because of Steve running to get him. So running to get her.
So and then it's a scene that I'm talking about. So and she says and so and she tells about the and you can just see Orton's face and like oh shit, we're like and here we go kind of thing. Is he sort of panic? So because Erica confidence is one and he says you're not and uh, you're not careful you're not careful with kids all the time to the attic.
Yeah, and like that shows a lot of the cockiness with Dot is a front.
Yeah.
And you do see now he's sort of realizing like if they step wrong, this is going to be very costly. And like I think it's a nice way to sort of end the episode because it sort of reinforces now with obviously with Denton anyway, she was always tricky. The evidence was always a bit flaky, but now she's making accusations that are pretty like high risk. And if they're now getting involved with superintendents and that sort of level, it's getting a bit hairy now.
And it's only going to get even more. It's only going to get even more corrupt as you go through later series, because all that's been set up now, because you can't abandon that now, so it's going to get finished out even more. Right, guys. So chat before I get Charlotte to give a rating for this episode. What are you
Scores in the chat.
and so what are you guys I've not, and remember, Ines and Ozaren. But by
Oh,
the
that's going to happen, I think, for you in a little bit.
yeah, but by the signs of it, this episode is actually enjoyable across the board. So, what do you guys I think Sadar was straight away gives it gives it a 9 out of 10. And oh, and she gives it marks 9 out of 10. So
Uh,
Sadar what does Sadar will say?
I'll only give a minus score for a select few Doctor Who serials. If that's your line, we'll see then.
Although we kind of get to, although we kind of get to that sort of stage when we talk about the abomination of our first episode in series three.
You're gonna have
Then,
vintage ranting Daniel, folks. Have you missed him? You're gonna get full blast Daniel ranting when we get to series 3, the first episode.
yeah, so they might actually want to change that comment until when we get to
You
the
don't know,
first.
see, he might like it though, you don't know. I don't
Oh
think it's as
my.
bad as you make it out to be, but it's anyway. So 9 out of 10 from Matthew.
Yeah, 9 I better get back to doing my job. Oh, yeah, 9 out of 10, Matthew. Very good.
See, Professor
Um,
Doku gets me, he's laughing.
yeah.
So do you want me
She's
to give my
got,
score?
yeah, yeah, couple of otherwise she's going to kill me.
I
Again,
would
so
have
what
killed
you
you a
get,
long time ago, my friend.
yes, what you get that, Charlotte?
I'm going to give this a 9.5. Only because of I know the episodes that are to come, and I don't want to just give tens like constantly because I think it sort of makes it less of a score. So I'll do 9.5 because, like I
Yeah,
said, this is. I think if you want to show somebody how to do multiple link sort of stories and how to do sort of an episode that has lots of moving parts that all fit together, that all sort of each makes the other one a bit more like each part improves the next part, each that sort of aspect of it, that each scene feels like it's got a purpose. And I think the sort of I know for some the cruelty might seem a bit harsh in this episode, but it needs to be there, I would argue, because it is
yeah,
showing how it's like I think Denton in a way she's been pushed a lot, but I think you almost need her to be even more pushed at this stage. And this is the perfect way to do it. I think Doc coming back is really good. I think his presence is just enough of a disruptor. He's just enough of a sort of what's he doing here sort of presence that he helps. But then, like I sort of said, you've got some really nice moments with Steve and Kate. You've got also, which we forgot to mention, even Hastings and Steve sort of make up in the pub. So you have some very nice sort of character sort of like I said, you can see the trio is always I feel like Jed never lets go an opportunity to develop those three, even if it's only in little bits. And that's what also I'd say. If you want to look at something which is very good at sort of doing character development but not being in your face and sort of being very subtle about it, that's also what this show does very well. So I'll give this a 9.5 because I know what comes next, basically.
yeah. Right, so, and Matthew says it's forward command of season 3. See, here's
It's
the
not all
thing,
bad for season 3, it's just that first episode he hates it.
see, here's the thing, I've only seen last episode of season 3, and my God, was it a cure for insomnia? Stupid, stupid episode, stupid casting, and
I
all
honestly think, right, if
and so
that
yeah, but yeah,
actor hadn't have been in the episode, you wouldn't have hated it so much.
and yeah, so we'll get to that in a few weeks' time. Don't worry about it. You hear more of the extent each sort of thing, but
Let's just
then
say I'll have to really be the sort of thing of, oh, Charlotte's the positive one. That's going to happen in that stream.
oh, well, it always does happen. I'm more like to get on pig typing, and it turn out when you're like this sort of happy sort of positive scene, and you wait sort of so we compliment each other.
We do.
But so as you can tell by the title of the stream, I enjoyed this episode. If you didn't already know, so I'll give it and so I'll give it full marks 10 out of 10, perfect sort of for all what's in the last episode. Some interesting scenes and dialogue were derived in this episode, and Mark on is an exceptional actor, and so's the rest of the cast that should point that out. But so far, because we're halfway through the series as well, I need to point out as well that there's only been maybe a couple of acts so far in the two series that you thought they could have maybe added a couple more minutes to the episode. I'm sure they could have negotiated well, I've been BBC not have you about adding another couple and it's on just to fill ish one of the things out, but apart from that, it takes their own way, and that's so far,
Yeah.
so far so good. And so in terms of so in terms of the channel, obviously next next like I'm going to try I name for next need to try and get the episode for the if you can improve it but like if anything changes or you know but it'll be nice to get some point anyway. Anyway, so we'll get it at some point next week anyway. I'll aim for I'll try and aim for some on but you know what on it so like something might come up but I'll get it out to use during I'll get it out to use next week at some point anyway if not yeah.
Yeah.
So shall we? So well, whose channel are you on? Because there's a whole bunch of channels. I put that down in the description. By the way, but I'll talk more about that after Charlotte and some shout outs.
Yep, so I'm pretty much a regular on TARDIS Zone. Yesterday we did the King's Demon Classic 2 watch along, where a lot of us thought it was alright, Noel absolutely hated it, so if you want to hear him have a nice rant, that was...
Yeah, that's because it's a site. Very swaffling. Off that rant from there's no compelling reason. You're probably with the victim. I don't know if I was watching that episode because it's shite.
Well, there we go. Daniel's got his catchphrase out. Yeah, so that's yesterday, and Dan asked me last night, so now I can say on Tuesday I'm going to be on the Spacebook Type 40 live stream talking about the absolute joys that was Comic Con with Doctor Who, and just how excited we all were and how much fun we had. So that's going to be on Tuesday, and
I'm
then
And yet I'm so happy that I'm not as to that whole Comic Con thing. I'm so happy I didn't put myself in through that, but carry
well,
on.
I am for all your guys' enjoyment. So thankful for you guys. Yeah, so that's on Tuesday, and then next month I am on Script Doctors. So those are the things I know about, so I can plug those.
Yeah, so in terms of myself, as I said, episode 4 will be out sometime next month. You know, but I've reviewing and what's I will have a coming up in the future with Bill with on it her being built like with if she says that she's had the schedule and so he hasn't got so I haven't got any I haven't got any of the scheduled deals as of right now, so I've put Bill on its channel in the description. I put the script Optus channel and there and here as well along with up my 5 rules and YouTube channels and PG Movies and channel my at the Facebook groups and the Spotify and the duties and and Post X and channel is also down on your bill. Because I've been talking to Post Rick a lot recently.
We love Bolster.
Yeah, and I've encouraged them to actually watch him in the take some maybe when he's up, we'll actually get him on a stick and together to talk about in the yeah, if he's up on me to ask him that so anything more you'd like to add, Charlotte, before the end of the stream?
No, pretty much that's it. Like, and just my usual message of if you ever feel like everything's getting a bit much, because I know I won't go into massive detail, but we've had some idiots in chats recently. So just to mainly just say, just concentrate on the stuff you love and the people who do care about you, and don't let a group of idiot children get you down.
Yep, it's totally because of all the deal, because of all the deal was for the side of the play anyway, because we all know that, because we all know that your favourite incarnation is a complete abomination, and even the general public think it's an abomination as well.
Their
So they
so-called
have,
allies are now calling it out, so have
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and do what PG maybe says. If you like the content, smash the thumbs up button, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed by checking the bell notification because they all know how much YouTube likes to screw YouTubers over. Yeah, well, that's my old our channel. So thank you, Emma. Thank you. Thanks for the support, guys, and we will see you next week for episode 4. Take care and stay safe, and I'll see you at some point next week.
Yep, have fun, everybody.